Tennessee is not throwing the SEC tournament, and they did not. So Caleb wrote about this, had an instant reaction piece because he's on fire on offthehooksports.com, and you can check that out. So Tennessee is not throwing the tournament. What do you take away from a win against a very average Ole Miss team?
I'm not sure they're not throwing the tournament. I think Ole Miss is that bad that they just.
Well, that's true.
I put it this way. I'm not sure Tennessee was really giving an effort in that game. Ole Miss fired Kermit Davis. They lost 6 of 7. Sure, they beat South Carolina, but South Carolina is awful too. Look, these bottom teams in the SEC are really, really bad.
They are.
I mean, horribly bad. And Ole Miss is right there on that level. And look, they were ahead of Tennessee 25-19 at the 10-minute mark. And all you really saw yesterday was Tennessee's depth. Even with Zakai Ziegler out, Tennessee's depth showed. I think Barnes played 10 guys yesterday. They're just deeper than Ole Miss, and Ole Miss couldn't hang. And Josiah Jordan-James just had one of those games that he has once every 4 games where he was pretty good from 3. I don't really think that was effort. I think that was, oh, look, Josiah's hitting some threes, and we're a little bit deeper than Ole Miss. So, hey, guys, we might win this game by falling out of bed and showing up. And that might be what happened.
No, I think to a large extent it is. And I do think that, they interviewed Zakai Ziegler on the sideline. I think there are going to be games coming up, be it in the SEC tournament or obviously the NCAA, where he's going to be missed, especially when somebody has great guard play and he's the defensive stopper. And you're not going to have that with Ziegler. I love the fact that he was cheery during the sideline interviews. It's so interesting to me how they used to hide players that were injured from the media. Maybe an Inky Johnson that at times wanted to talk to the media. And nowadays it's completely different. You want to get them out there. I think it's better for their morale, and the medical technology has improved so much that an ACL is not like an ACL used to be. As a matter of fact, an Achilles isn't even an Achilles injury like it was 5-10 years ago. But what do you make of Tennessee this afternoon, and what do you think they'll do for the rest of the SEC tournament? Because albeit a lesser opponent, they did show up to play for the full 40 minutes, maybe not from the get.
Yeah, no, that is very true. They did. I think Missouri, look, I don't think Missouri cares about this game either, but I think so this could be two teams really trying to lose to get to the tournament, because Missouri is a top 25 team. And so for the record, I want to point this out. Dennis Gates, Missouri's coach, should have been coach of the year. He should have been the only SEC coach of the year. They gave it to Buzz Williams and Jerry Stackhouse together. Should have been Dennis Gates. What he did at Missouri this year to get in his first year was really impressive. They're a top 25 team. They beat Tennessee in a high-scoring affair at Thompson Bowling Arena earlier this year. So I think that again, this is one of those games where it just depends on who is shooting the ball well from 3. Because I don't think any of them are going to show too much, out of their sets or run their offense that much. Tennessee might do that more, because I know Josh Ward and Ron Slay have both talked about how maybe they need to kind of work on finding somewhat of a rotation without Zakai Ziegler. I don't buy that. I think they kind of know what they need to do, and I think they know what they can't do. And if there's something they can't do, they're not going to figure it out in a 3-day conference tournament. They're just not. And so I'm kind of more. I think both teams are going to kind of take off in this game. So I don't know who's going to win, honestly. And I don't think either team cares who wins.
I think Tennessee has some. I'll give Tennessee credit for a little bit more spunk, maybe, than you. Not a lot. I mean, it's not like they should be expected to be just all on top of their game with no Ziegler. They've still got to figure that stuff out. There's probably more thinking going on the floor than there needs to be. So, but I'll give them slightly more credit than you. I think that Tennessee is probably going to win today, and then it's a coin flip on Saturday. So they would play the winner of who tomorrow? Do you have that?
I think it's Alabama and Florida. The winner of Alabama and Florida is who they play.
Does anybody get sick when you see Alabama just out there running around and like everything's okay? And by the way, Brandon Miller did have to visit with the media for the first
Alabama, Mississippi State. Sorry to interrupt, but it's Alabama, Mississippi State winner of that game.
Oh, that's fine. Alabama did have to visit with the media. That means that they've got rules in the SEC, and you're dictated by television coverage that you have to visit with the media. So it's the first time that Brandon Miller spoke, and he was contrite and all that sort of thing. But just for the record, I mean, it's a bad look for the SEC, and this story is going to continue to be churned. This is why I said that they should seriously, and they probably did, seriously consider shutting down the season, because this story is going to continue to be churned in the NCAA tournament. And the deeper they go, they're going to continue to be questioned about the whole situation in which Brandon Miller had possession of the gun in what ended up being a murder. And if they go deep in the Final Four, which I don't think they will, I think what's going to happen is this team, and I've covered teams like this before for different reasons. They have some sort of emotional hurdle to get over, and then they do, and then it's collapse time. So I think what you'll see out of Alabama, because they're legit, is probably get to the Sweet 16 and then collapse. Then it's just like it's too much. And I think that's what you're going to see. So Alabama, in retrospect, will have to ask itself, if I'm right, is a Sweet 16 run, or even better, worth all the negative publicity? I would argue not. As a businessman, I don't think that that's what you want to portray. And I'm telling you, it's going to be asked over and over again, wherever they go, be it New York City or Los Angeles, wherever their first round games are. And I know it'll be closer than that. And then the next round, you're going to have a whole new set of reporters, Caleb, that are going to want to ask Brandon Miller the same questions, and he is going to have to answer them, and Alabama can't hide him. That's one of the reasons I thought that they should seriously consider shutting the season down. And it's just going to continue to churn, and it's a bad look for Alabama's athletic department in general.
So let's think about this long term, though. Now, if you want to say sit Brandon, okay, because I'm mixed on a few things. I don't think Brandon Miller's future should be ruined over this, but I don't think it would be, because even if he didn't play the rest of the season, he'd still be a top 5 draft pick. Most of the NBA scouting now is done from high school players.
Agreed.
And so they don't really use the 1 year in college. So you're not ruining his future. Brandon Miller doesn't care if he wins a national championship at Alabama.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
It was a business decision for me. It would not be a moral or ethical decision. It would be a business decision that it's not worth the negative pub even to make a Final Four run.
Right. Now, the question is, if you shut the whole season down, does that make it such a bigger deal that it hurts your recruiting even in the future? Or are you better off maybe obviously kicking Darius Miles off the team and maybe sitting Brandon Miller the rest of the year, taking that stance, and then still playing the season to where you say, okay, we have a set of morals, but I mean, wouldn't shutting the season down just wreck Alabama basketball for recruiting in the future? Like, I feel like that would magnify the stain. So from a business perspective, not moral one, a business one, wouldn't that end up causing more harm?
Caleb, my take is it's already crushed Alabama's basketball program, because
you think it's done?
You have to remember, I view this from a father's standpoint, because I've got a son that's 18. And it would take an awful lot of convincing for me not to be concerned about my son playing basketball at Alabama, knowing that 3 players were involved in this thing. That would take a lot of convincing, and I don't know that it's even possible.
Yeah, that's true. I'm thinking now. Sorry, a thought came into my mind. They're going to watch them make a Final Four run, and watch you see a puff piece on how they overcame the trauma of somebody being murdered.
Matter of time. That's coming. It's probably the 30 for 30 is coming out right now.
Exactly. So The Onion had a little video about 10 years ago, and it's like it was so disturbing, but it was so real. It was like they did a fake article like, meet this basketball player who overcame the trauma of raping a female to become a basketball star at the school. And like that actually happens a lot of times. And so
one of the great things about our society and one of the worst things about our society is that we want to forgive. And it's great in some respects. It can be really awful and over the top. And a late NBA basketball player comes to mind, but I don't even want to go there. So you probably know who I'm talking about, of an incident that happened, and he is celebrated as if it didn't. And I think that is often left out of the narrative. Of course, I'm referring to Kobe Bryant, who I think a lot of as a player and as a worker, but I think it's odd that Denver situation was just left out of the narrative when you tell the Kobe Bryant story.